now. We'll pretty much
Hello,
be live.
welcome to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together and talk about current events and the big ideas that will shape our future. I am Steve, and my co-host is
Zach, and this week we'll be talking about disasters and our preparedness or complete lack thereof. It depends on what sort of disaster we're talking about.
Certainly a lot of people weren't prepared for the fucking economic disaster of COVID. That's for goddamn sure.
And it seems as though perhaps the flooding in Kentucky and the surrounding region. I hear St. Louis is also getting hammered.
Yeah. Have we really had like an in-depth on climate change? I know it comes up in basically everything we fucking talk about, but
only like as an overarching, it is a thing and stuff is changing, but nothing like the specific effects that are going to hit people every day.
Yeah. And speaking of which, well, let's do a quick check-in real quick.
All right. Well, nothing much going on around here. Work slowed down a little bit. Apparently Disney's gonna explore if Obi-Wan Kenobi is bisexual or not. I don't know.
What are you talking about?
You haven't heard about that?
Jesus fucking Christ.
Okay, so apparently if you tell Google that you like Star Wars even once, they just give you everything. Because you know how on the Android phones it'll give you the Google notifications for news stuff. Star Wars, and apparently like a few other things that I looked into like once. What's her name? Megan, the chick from the Transformers movie. Or she got in the news and I looked her up once, and now Google's like, you need to know everything about her, right? I'm like, no, I really don't, but I thank you. Whatever. But yeah, apparently that's why I was saying, they're talking about retconning Star Wars via a whole bunch of books and series and stuff like that, and adding stupid little details like Rey's parents' names, and it turns out that the father was a clone of Palpatine and escaped with the help of someone on Rashagul or whatever, or Exegol. There you go. and so they're doing that, and then also I didn't read the article. I don't care enough, but it was Disney to explore if Obi-Wan Kenobi bisexual, and I'm like, he's a space monk. I don't. Yes, he did have, relationships in the Legends canon, but
well, and also in canon, he clearly he literally said to Duchess Satine, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Clone Wars, what is it?
Get on it.
Season 6 from 15 years ago, or whatever. Yeah, he's straight up was I would have left the Jedi Order if you had told me you wanted to run away together. And this is coming from someone who until that point you saw the A New Hope Obi-Wan, and you kind of saw some other stuff in the feature films of the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and you kind of never got that vibe, right?
Yeah.
But clearly he was I would have left all of this had you said you wanted to run away together. And so he clearly is a heterosexual. Not that it matters. Let's stick with exploring Lando's kind of pansexual appetites with his droids and Lobot. Lobot was always a speculation, right? They're what's up with this Lobot guy?
Specs Lobot.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's good. I'm it's not good that Google is spoon feeding you things that they think will keep your eyeballs, but good that things are going still.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that there's Star Wars content, of course. Let's see, on my end, weather. I was going to mention climate change when we started. Because the CalAdapts tool that California has, it's based on the various models, six different models, I think. Mm-hmm. It's just a visualization tool. Maybe we can put that in the description for the show. It's just cal-adapt.gov or .org. Just Google it. And anyway, one of the things that I took out of looking through the models and stuff and using the tool was that we are going to have much more mild temperatures year round. So winters are going to be a little bit warmer and summers are actually going to be a little bit cooler. And then they're going to be punctuated by periods of extreme cold and extreme heat, right? especially on the heat end, very extreme heat. So right now it's like, I mean, it's hot, but it's like 92 degrees, dude. And it's like July in Chico.
Well,
And in the 90s and it's humid too. And in the 90s, low 90s in the summer in July in Chico is like unheard of.
I don't know about in Chico, but down here we're getting like all the smoke from the Yosemite fire blotting out the sun.
Okay.
There are some like pretty normal looking clouds, which I thought was interesting, but like overall the sun's kind of being blotted out. It is humid though. I figured that was my own apartment overwatering the grass.
Yeah, it is possible that it might be smoke because there is a fire in Siskiyou, but it's only 50,000 acres right now. It's fairly significant in the sense that it's burning somewhat close to the city of Wairika, which is like a small community on the interstate, like way up in the mountains. Not way up in the mountains. I think it's like 3,000 feet, but like when the interstate grinds towards the summit to cross into Oregon, Wairika is up there.
Very north.
And I guess like they evacuated half the town or something, or put them on a warning or something. So that there might be some atmospheric smoke causing it, but it was also cloudy the last couple of days, and that fire just flared up yesterday. So it's weird, man. It's just bizarre. And we had like, hot days, but like it's the end of July going into August. Like, right, tomorrow's August 1st.
Yes.
I don't think we hit 110 this summer at all, which is weird because last summer, like by the middle of April, we had already had like our first like 5-day triple digit heat wave in April, right? And then we had like 3 weeks over last summer that like we had 3 or 4 days of like 110, 112,
right?
Which is just inhospitably hot. But anyway, yeah, it's been a real kind of surreal summer. It's not nearly as hot. Although the evenings did get warmer, which I always prefer it to be hot during the day and then cool at night.
Yeah, no
it
such
sucks when it's like 80, it's like 90 degrees at like midnight.
Yeah.
Like, at any rate, that's enough catching up, man. We said we were going to try and keep it a little bit shorter, but it does tie into what we're talking about with that fire in Siskiyou, the fires in Yosemite. Now, these forests like are mismanaged, and that's a whole nother conversation. But it is a reality that there's a severe drought in California, and California always has droughts. But most of the climate records I'm familiar with, I think they were doing. Of course, there's like some complicated scientific name for it, but it's people who study like ancient pollen.
Yeah.
Pollinologists. Pollinologists. Or paleobotanists, I think maybe.
There you go.
Might be the one. But anyway, they were looking at pollen, and actually they were saying like the last like 300 or 400 years in California were like on the wet end for like what the long-term record shows for the state.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
Yeah, and so like there's a lot of drought, and because like we've had a policy of fire suppression and basically wanted to do the exact opposite of like what indigenous people did for 10 15 20,000 years or whatever, right? Like we didn't want the forest to burn, so now we have these catastrophic wildfires, and that's one of the many disasters folks will have to be prepared for. And there was a news item, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and just get used to, is burning all the time.
Yeah, and not being able to breathe, it fucking sucks. Change your AC filter, and like 10 times a year or something.
Yeah, and they're like
a $1
piece for the good ones.
Yeah, there was a news item earlier this week, and I didn't find a lot of additional details on it, but I do have some acquaintances in East Asia, and that there was a fairly bad earthquake. I don't know if you got any footage or details about that.
No, not today. I mostly heard about flooding. Interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there was like an earthquake in East Asia, and it apparently wasn't like super deadly. It was fairly destructive. I saw, on the ground pictures of buildings, tilted or collapsed or otherwise structurally, beyond repair, right? So it was a significant earthquake, even if the death toll wasn't super high. But it just kind of like prompted this thinking in me that it's like we should talk about like earthquakes, right? Because we make the joke that like when we were kids in high school in California, like earthquake drills were like they were like fire drills. We did them
Okay.
like once every 2 months, 3 months,
All
at
the
least a couple
rage.
times a semester.
Well, and at least for me, they overlapped with the nuclear attack drills. So
Yeah, for
hey,
you, yeah.
yeah,
I don't really recall school prior to the fall of the Berlin Wall, but I mean, it'd
sure,
still be good practice to do nuke drills. Like
yeah, yeah.
they're like hide under your desk. It's like pretty sure. I mean, yeah, that would
Better
be
than nothing.
functional in preventing you from being damaged by like debris and shit. But like,
Yeah,
it doesn't really save you in the long term if you're close enough.
yeah, yeah.
Close enough to the blast where you're immediately saturated in radiation. You know,
Yeah.
might as well go quick with the building collapsing on my head rather than like sitting under a pile of rubble while I like blister up and shit or whatever.
Best
Anyway,
case.
earthquakes. Yeah. So, I recalled a documentary I watched a while ago about the Cascadia subduction zone
Mhm.
and thinking about obviously the San Andreas, the most, famous earthquake fault probably on Earth, largely because there's something like 30 million people. Like, is it like 75% of the state lives like fairly close proximity to that fault? And it has resulted in some incredibly awful earthquakes. Obviously, the San Francisco 1906 quake was probably one of the most famous because of how destructive it was.
Yeah.
Mostly because the buildings were made out of fucking wood and like so shit lit on fire and then the fire burned the whole city to the ground.
Yeah.
Practically. In the
Ooh.
early 90s and a few years before that, you experienced Loma Prieta as a child, even though you were considered right?
You're going all robot-y. But yeah, Loma Prieta, that was 1989, happened during the World Series. That's the only reason I probably remember it. Is actually like watching the game, all of a sudden everything went out, and I'm like, the earth is shaking. What's going on? Hey, that must be one of those earthquakes they drill us on. So of course, you go to the doorway.
Doorway.
I open up the door and look outside, and it's like, wow, everything's kind of moving. It's just like a movie. This is great. But I mean, I was far enough away that I wasn't gonna, really get damaged from anything. Like, we had some cracks in the walls of the house. It wasn't a concrete foundation though, so it wasn't like, oh no, the foundation's cracked. We're gonna have to pay tens of thousands. It was just, crack here and there. You are still robot. What's up with you, man? You're in the red. Oh, show. Tell you what, I'm gonna play the video. That'll solve this problem real quick.
There are two broad classes of seismic waves: body waves and surface waves. Body waves travel within the body of Earth. They include P, or primary waves, and S, or secondary waves. P waves cause the ground to compress and expand, that is, to move back and forth, in the direction of travel. They are called primary waves because they are the first type of wave to arrive at seismic recording stations. P waves can travel through solids, liquids, and even gases. S waves shake the ground in a shearing or crosswise motion that is perpendicular to the direction of travel. These are the shake waves that move the ground up and down or from side to side. S waves are called secondary waves because they always arrive after P waves at seismic recording stations. Unlike P waves, S waves can travel only through solid materials. After both P and S waves have moved through the body of Earth, they are followed by surface waves, which travel along Earth's surface. Surface waves travel only through solid media. They are slower moving than body waves, but are much larger and therefore more destructive. The two types of surface waves are named love waves and Rayleigh waves after the scientists who identified them. Love waves have a horizontal motion that moves the surface from side to side perpendicular to the direction the wave is traveling. Of the two surface waves, love waves move faster. Rayleigh waves cause the ground to shake in an elliptical pattern. This motion is similar to that observed in ocean waves. Of all the seismic waves, Rayleigh waves spread out the most, giving them a long duration on seismograph recordings.
Yeah. Well, go over here. So yeah, those P waves are very much like your voice. You're basically expelling air. It compresses the air in front of it and takes it into someone's ears, hits their eardrum. Blap. Uh, oh no, Steve's gone forever. Um, so I guess we're done for this week. But yeah, S waves are just basically the ones that are a little bit slower because they have to propagate through the earth instead of actually like stretching it out and moving it. The L waves tend to be the ones that cause the most damage due to the fact that they're going side to side and they can move so fast that even within a smaller structure, one side is moving one way while the other is moving the other way, and it can just rip buildings apart side to side through shear stresses. And then of course those Raleigh waves, those are the weird ones. Like when there's an actual big earthquake, if you're close enough you can actually watch the ground undulate. I've seen videos of it. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, Steve is saying he's absolutely gone. So I'm going to go ahead and have to call it. We might just have to eat Comcast alive, I guess. And let me see if you can mobile hotspot. Mobile hotspot. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on for just a little bit at least, because we got a couple more videos that I like. This next one here is going to be with Simon Whistler. You'll probably recognize him. He's all over the internet. He basically has his own shows and then also narrates for anybody who will pay him money. And he's got a great voice, so people love paying him money. All right, here we go.
It will be one of the biggest earthquakes in history. When the big one finally hits America's west coast, it will unleash carnage on a scale rarely seen. Buildings will collapse, burying thousands in rubble. Fires will break out, devastating entire city blocks. There will be landslides, dam failures, chemical spills, things that taken alone would qualify as one of the worst disasters this side of Hurricane Katrina. But taken all together, it will affect millions. And that's just for starters. Minutes after shaking begins, a vast tsunami will roll in, washing away coastal communities and inundating hundreds of thousands of square miles. By the time the wave recedes, North America will have witnessed its worst ever natural disaster. The culprit behind all this misery? Well, that would be the Cascadia megathrust fault, an offshore subduction zone capable of unleashing so much energy it'd make the fabled San Andreas Big One look like a mere wobble. But rather than being a hypothetical, this megaquake will soon become reality. Estimates for it happening in the next 50 years range from a worrying 1 in 10 to a terrifying 1 in 3. Today, we're exploring both the history of Cascadia and its apocalyptic future.
Yeah, doom and gloom. Gotta love it. We are going to have to pick it up because I'm not even getting anything back. We'll pick it up next week. Next week, hopefully. Maybe the week after that. I'm going to look into some settings to see if maybe I can reduce Steve's network load during these live streams. Maybe a lower resolution or something like that to make it so he's not being pounded so hard by the demands of a live stream. Barring that, we might just have to start doing recordings and do editing afterwards. Anyway, so I will talk to you guys later. Sorry for the short broadcast. Y'all have a good week.